Hi, this is Andres Pedraza, and I'm here with Ryan Poynter, who chose to say hi to every person he encountered for 3 days. Hi, Ryan, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So, can you tell us more about your experiment?
Yeah, so for a lot of people who don't know me, I'm a pretty big introvert, generally speaking, so I decided to go 3 days where I did essentially the opposite of what I usually do, which is not speak to very many people when I'm out and about throughout the day, going from class to class or from my dorm room to the cafeteria, and I decided to speak to every single person that I encountered.
And you said you did that for 3 days,
For
right?
3 days, yeah.
Did you have like any rules or any exceptions during those 3 days?
There were a few rules, yeah. The first one, of course, was that I had to speak to every single person that I saw, but there were a couple of exceptions. If there were people clustered into groups, for example, like I could address those people as a group. I wouldn't have to say hi to them each individually. That way I didn't interrupt them if they were going places or if they were busy or in conversations amongst themselves. If I was in the cafeteria where there were tables full of people, obviously I couldn't stop at every single table because I would never get to sit down and eat. And so I chose in the cafeteria or really crowded places like that to speak only to the people who I made eye contact with. Another rule was that if I knew someone's name, I had to address them by name, so that way it could be a little more personal and I could seem like I was actually interested in the conversation, because there were a lot of times, because I'm such an introvert, that I wasn't really that interested, or it was kind of forceful to me. So those, I think, were the main rules.
Okay, but what was your biggest motivation to assume this project, to do it?
My biggest motivation probably was just to change. I'm by nature really quiet, really introverted. I don't speak to a lot of people. And so sometimes the perception that people have of me is very different than who I am. Because I'm quiet, because I don't openly speak to them, just because I'm uncomfortable doing so, they assume maybe that I'm not a nice person sometimes, or that I don't want to talk to them, and that's rarely ever the case. So it was an effort that I had to make consciously, and do have to make every day, to open myself up to people and to say these people are not necessarily the same as me in terms of being introverted or not outgoing. How can I meet them where they are and show them that I do care?
And how did it work with people? Do you think your friends or people that you usually are around saw any change in you during those 3 days?
The process as a whole was really interesting, and I think change definitely occurred from day 1 to day 3. Day 1 was very much a struggle. Day 3 was also a struggle, but I had opened myself up more to the possibility that I could be a little more outgoing. My friends, they thought it was an interesting experiment. I don't know that they necessarily saw change. They saw a lot of frustration, I think, in me when I would try to have conversations with them, and I would have to stop it so that I could say hi to other people that I didn't know at all. And so frustration from me, maybe even from them, that's probably most of what they saw.
Did you have any, I don't know, rule for time with a person that you didn't know? For example, you said if you knew a person, you will call them by their name. But if you didn't know them, you would just go and say hi.
Yeah.
So did you have any time limitation to do that?
Well, there was one more rule that I did forget to mention. If someone stops me and asks for a conversation with me, this happened only one time throughout the 3 days, but I had to see that conversation to its completion. I couldn't cut the conversation off and say, I'm sorry, I have to go. I had to wait until they finished saying everything that they had to say and then move on from there. So that was interesting, because actually I got caught in about a 10-minute conversation with one person on my way to class, and I was late. But it was interesting. That was another rule that I forgot to mention.
What do you think you learned with this project?
I think I learned a lot, honestly. The first and foremost thing is that I am different from a lot of people in the sense that I'm very introverted, and a lot of people can mistakenly see that as standoffishness. A lot of people perceive introversion a lot of times as being rude, and that's not always the case. It's always usually it's about comfort, where I'm comfortable and where I'm not comfortable. I'm comfortable with myself. Sometimes other people make me less comfortable, and that's nothing to do with them. That's entirely to do with me. So I learned a lot about myself, in that if I'm going to interact with people, and I'm going to care about people, and I'm going to make friends, then I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone. Another big thing that I learned about it, this is probably the biggest thing that I learned, is just the opportunity that I have to impact people each and every day. By saying hi to every single person that I saw, I realized the amount of people that I actually have the chance to interact with each day. It was something close to 300, I think, about 100 people a day that I had the opportunity to influence just by saying hi to them or asking them how their day was, and you would be surprised how far that goes. So the magnitude of the influence that I could potentially have, even on a small campus like this one, was something that I learned.
That's pretty nice. So overall, like, what do you think is your final opinion of this experiment?
I think I'm leaving with generally a positive outlook. I feel like I was successful. There were several times throughout the experience where I failed, where I would pass someone and not say hi to them, but I found myself immediately regretting it even afterwards. One, because I had committed to do something that I didn't follow through with in that particular instance, and two, because that's an opportunity that I missed. So I feel like it's really opened my eyes and given me a new perspective on how people interact, and how I interact specifically with other people, and how they see me.
Oh, okay, Ryan, thanks for being here with us. Hope to see you again.